Hello and welcome back to the Punchers Chant podcast, and welcome to the review show where we have a look back at everything in boxing last weekend. This weekend, that was, of course, Ben Whittaker versus Liam Cameron, as well as Dalton Smith on a matchroom card, and lots of exciting stuff, as well as some big fight announcements, courtesy of Ring Magazine. We'll get onto that a little bit later on. But as always, straight into the action, the big fights, the excitement. Ben, I have to kick over to you as always because you were there for this one. Whittaker Cameron. Where do you start?
Yeah, it was a great experience to be there. It was the first time I'd been in the that arena in Birmingham, and it's set out perfectly, I think, for sort of a boxing event, just because it's so sort of crammed in and tight, but really packs the atmosphere in there, and obviously it had a strong local crowd, which I was surprised. I did say last week, even though it did surprise me a bit how sort of much he was getting booed, Ben Whittaker, as he was coming out and he was in the ring. He didn't have as much local backing as I think maybe he should have, or you would have hoped he did. But you've got to give him full credit. I'd like to apologise for giving the prediction I thought Liam Cameron would win. Obviously, my predictions haven't been going great over the last few weeks, but Ben Whittaker, well and truly, I think it was a performance he needed because he was under a lot of pressure going into the fight, obviously, with everything he's been through. And the emotions he showed after the fight ended and in the press conference afterwards, you could show that what he's been through over the last few months has really affected him. And I'm pretty sure that the victory on Sunday night will put him in good stead going the future of his career now, because many people had it as a make or break for his career going forward, and I wasn't expecting a second round stoppage, but as soon as he had Liam Cameron hurt, he certainly put him away in quite good fashion. I thought some people were saying it was early, but I felt like he had him hurt enough for the referee to step in and make that call.
Yeah, and we can get onto some of that more controversial stuff because it's boxing. There's always controversy. We'll talk about the post-fight reaction and the possibly early stoppage as well a little bit after we talk a little bit about, like you said, a very impressive performance, a back-to-the-wall performance where he needed to deliver, and boy, did he do so. Like you say, the emotions he showed in the post-match, or the post-fight, sorry, pressure was beautiful to see. A real sort of true representation, and that performance was, like he said himself, it was really what he should have been doing in the first fight on paper, with the talent he's got and with the talent he's shown in the past. And with Andy Lee behind him, we could be seeing a new, better and more exciting Ben Whittaker, can't we?
Yeah, definitely. I said in the week that, well, especially after the fight on Sunday, Andy Lee seems to be making a career now of rebuilding fighters and making them show their true potential. There was a lot of murmurs from pundits and fans over once they heard of the sort of link up between the two. Was there an issue in Ben Whittaker's camp and why he's decided to make that change? But you can see that it was the correct decision to make, and it was clearly a move that he needed to make to sort of really knuckle down with his training and get the best out of himself. He said that the Ben Whittaker we've seen in Saudi Arabia wasn't the best version for himself, and he probably wasn't applying himself as much as he could. And now with our link up with Andy Lee, I feel like we are going to see the best version of Ben Whittaker. And even though he had a very impressive win on Sunday, I still feel like maybe we need to take a step back now. Let's not rush him just because he's picked this win up and sort of go past this one hurdle. Let's not try and elevate him too much. Let's take our time with him, because you need to think he's still only 10 fights into his pro career, so he's still very, very early into his pro career, and he's got a lot of tough tests still to come, so it's not a matter of pushing him too quickly now. And I'm sure with Andy Lee in his corner that he'll guide him in the right way, as he has done with other fighters such as Joseph Parker, and will do with the likes of Hamza Sheeraz as well going forward.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, there's a reason we gave him, and I said unequivocally, if there's a man in boxing I would want in charge of my career, it would be Andy Lee. We said that in the 100th special, and there was a reason for that, and it was because I said when a fighter of his wins or loses, it's not because of the tactics or anything like that. And, if he's punching through his opponents like he showed against someone with a brilliant chin like Liam Cameron, then you could see him start to cause problems to lots of different fighters. And that is exciting. That is really, really exciting. And like you say, there's so many good fights to that division that they don't need to rush him onto that world level. You've always got Louis Edmondson versus Ezra Taylor, which looks likely to happen. I'd love to see the winner of that versus Ben Whittaker down the line. But actually, while that's happening, there's no reason why they can't get him out 1-2 more times between now and then. Bit of a tune-up, bit of a test. And then, he can start challenging the likes of Louis Edmondson, Ezra Taylor, Lerone Richards, Craig Richards, lots of brilliant fighters at light heavyweight, even before you move on to the likes of Buatsi, Callum Smith, So like you say, exciting things to come, but let's not get carried away because he is far from a finished article, and 10 fights and Olympic silver medal, very impressive, but needs to show more before we can start doing the Harry Tovey and saying future world champion and all of this sort of thing. Let's talk about the fight and some of the things around it. You mentioned it a little bit, the early stoppage. I tend to sit in a similar place to you. I think he was hurt, and perhaps we could be just seeing the inevitable come out from there. But there is a moment, a punch or two, that could be the difference between seeing the inevitable and actually him recovering and pulling through or whatever. From ringside, certainly, you saw the way his knees buckled. Do you say, and you thought it was probably fair?
Yeah, I think maybe it looked different on TV, but from where I was sitting, where he sort of slumped back into the ropes, when you see a fighter like that, even though a lot of the punches, I will agree, were sort of landing on gloves or elbows, they weren't catching him sort of clean to the head or to the face. It was still a matter of time, I felt, before they started to break through. And Liam Cameron, we know he's as tough as you get when it comes to fighters. He'd be almost be too proud to go down in that instance. I feel like he would have just stood there and taken the punishment, but sometimes there's not a need for it. So I can understand from some people that maybe slightly frustrated, and I feel like some of that frustration comes from the fact that many people wanted to see Ben Whittaker lose on Sunday. But I really feel like it was the first time we've seen him hit and punch with a lot of spite and power behind his punches, which I put down, I think, to working with Andy Lee. Obviously, he's got a history and a background with a Kronk gym, and he stated in his own career that when he made that move, they were the ones that sort of taught him how to really punch with power and punch properly, I suppose. So I feel like he's taken a lot from Andy Lee there, and that's why we've seen him come out with such a statement performance on Sunday and get that stoppage.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think if you see a man get wobbled like you saw Liam Cameron get wobbled, and then take, I didn't count them, but double digits amount of punches unanswered, that is the hallmarks of a finish. And there was the 1-2 punch just before the ref stopped it, where, like you say, he dropped down a level, really slumped into the ropes. And when your legs give in like that, even if it was just to absorb, it certainly looks like, time to call it a day from the referee's point of view. And to be honest, there's one man whose opinion on that matters, and it's Liam Cameron's, and he hasn't complained about the stoppage, as far as I've heard. So I think that just about puts that argument to bed. And then there was the whole post-fight stuff as well. And I think we could get bogged down on this and this whole fight as a whole, to be honest, for ages. And we try and keep these generally at half an hour so we don't have to go on about this forever because, the two sides of it's been said by Dave Colwell or Johnny Nelson. But from your point of view, you saw it. I think you even had it on video. What did you make of that? It didn't look great to begin with, did it, as you went over and kind of had an altercation with Grant Smith?
Yeah, it's difficult because, like you said, you look at it from both ways, really. Liam Cameron, in probably what is the biggest fight of his career so far, has been stopped in the second round, so his corner is going to be very much upset. And when you're rushing over in the moment of such high emotion like that and celebrating in their face, you can understand why people felt that it was disrespectful and why they especially felt that it was the wrong thing to do. But also when you look at Ben Whittaker and what he's been through over the last few months, especially after I seen him in the post-fight press conference and the real emotion he showed through what he's been through the last few months, I think it's quite a human reaction sometimes for those emotions to come flooding out, because he's obviously been holding a lot in over the last few months. And that stoppage there in the second round, one, I think maybe he didn't think it would come that early, and two, I think it was just a matter of emotions flooding out. That's months worth of emotions flooding out at once. And you've got a crowd of, I don't know how many, it was a couple of thousand packed in there. The atmosphere was roaring in there. And when you've got all them, what seemed like a large majority of those people up against you, a lot of people online up against you, and you've proved a lot of those people wrong, it is quite hard sometimes, and not many people would be in that position to be able to try and hold and control those emotions in that moment. So, yeah, I can understand it from both points of view, really. And I think it's something he'll learn from in the future, but yeah, it's a difficult one because it's caused a bit of a stir. But I think the overriding thing we need to look at is the performance he produced under high pressure and where we go from here with Ben Whittaker.
Yeah, I think to me, more than anything, I thought it was a shame because me and you know very well what the real Ben Whittaker's like. We've met the real Ben Whittaker, and he's not a nasty guy. He's a lovely guy. He's a humble guy. He's a very, I found, alarmingly normal person compared to the sort of showman that we've seen. But I think this it comes down to, and there's no one person to blame for this, but like you say, a real headhunt on Ben Whittaker after that loss, rightfully or wrongfully, and you put you fight with a style he does, and you open yourself up for criticism when it goes wrong, and that's what happened. But when you had all of that, and then you had Liam Cameron's team and Lee Eaton and these guys really just peddling it in fight with to sell the fight, so to speak. And I think they were selling the fight with the wheelchair and all of this sort of thing. That's what's going to happen. Like you say, it's a human. You can only take so much. And I think we saw that break and that moment of emotion, and afterwards they all consoled, and that's all that matters. If it was, again, like I said, with Liam Cameron, if he doesn't think it's an early stoppage, then probably isn't an early stoppage. If Grant Smith isn't coming out and going, oh, what a knobhead Ben Whittaker is, he assaulted me, this, that, the other, bloody blah, 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 then is it a problem? It's between two blokes. So that's all settled. And I think I'm happy to see Whittaker now able to kind of keep pushing on, because I like him, and I've had no qualms admitting that, even though lots of people took the other route. Now, we've got quite a lot actually to get through on this week episode. It was quite a busy weekend, all things considered. So we won't dwell on everything for too long. Fights on the undercard of that one. Frazer Clarke back. It's only Ebenezer Tete after all, so again, not too much to read into. But he's back, a good performance, and another one where we saw that kind of bit of emotion at the end, real excitement from Clarke to kind of have that boogeyman off his back in terms of the stoppage with Wardley.
Yeah, I think it's been a difficult few months for Frazer Clarke. He's not someone who's normally inactive, and to be out of the ring for so long following that injury against Fabio Wardley, I think has been very difficult. But I think that win on Sunday was exactly what he needed, and in a style that he needed it as well. If he had laboured through 10 rounds with Tete, or, it made it look more difficult than it was, then I think he even said himself that it'd probably be a case of looking at whether he wants to continue or what are the options going forward. But I think that on Sunday very much proved that he's still got a lot to give, and I'd love to see him face the winner of what will probably be the rematch between David Adley and Jamie TKV. I think that's the correct move for him. He'll have plenty of exciting fights at domestic level, and I think that British title fight between him and David Adley would be the perfect one to start.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's a good fight. It's a good step, and a natural thing. And it gives him maybe probably one more fight in between as well, where he can kind of start to get that confidence up and get the fighting fit again. Elsewhere on the card, of course, Lee Cutler, Sam Eggington. Shame, again, we can't really maybe go into this in more detail because another great fight ended in disappointing fashion, maybe with the Cutler. We wouldn't be able to see how it ended with Lee Cutler going all the way. But I don't think there's a huge amount of complaints with the decision, albeit maybe slightly wide on the cards.
No, to be honest, that was the one fight of the night that I didn't really catch much of because I was out the back speaking to Mr. Tyler Denny. So I was spending my time chatting with him after his win. But from what I could see in the glimpses I seen, it almost was like a clash of styles that didn't really work. It was quite messy, quite a scrappy fight. Not probably as enjoyable as we would have expected. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on the scorecards because a lot of people I spoke to there on the night felt that it was quite harsh on Cutler, the way the scores were. Probably that Eggington had won overall, but that maybe it was a bit of a closer fight than the scorecard suggested.
Yeah, it was definitely too wide on the cards. It was a tighter fight than that. I had it, I think, just narrowly to Eggington because I thought there was a knockdown at one point, but it wasn't. So then I would have had it slightly narrowly to Eggington if based off of that. So yeah, I'm no complaints on that. He's harsh on the Cutler because he was coming on so strong, and he probably would have gone on to win that fight if it had gone the distance. But that's the game, and also actually unfortunate because I think it was actually a punch that caused that cut initially, albeit it was a head clash initially. It was a punch that continued to cause that problem. So it's a difficult one, a sort of awkward thing, but Cutler will come back from that, and that's not a concern. So yeah, not a huge amount wrong with that. Obviously, like you said as well, Tyler Denny, another comeback performance. We've got the interview with Tyler on the channel, so check that out for that. We won't go into that too much, but impressive from him. All round, Mark Jeffers, oppressive, albeit disappointing management. Final thoughts from yourself. Wrap that one up as a card. Maybe give it a rating out of 10.
Ooh, it'd be quite high. I think it's one of the better cards we'll see this year. I don't think every fight sort of produced as much as we'd expected, especially looking at the Cutler fight. But that main event was certainly something special, and I think will be remembered. I'd probably give it about a 7 or 8 out of 10. In terms of boxer shows, it's probably one of the better ones they're going to put on this year.
I think that's a fair and reasonable answer. And onto a card that I said I was more excited for than a lot of people, and shows what I know because it wasn't the most entertaining card in the world. Courtesy of Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Obviously, Dalton Smith, really rudimentary win over Mathieu Germain. He's a special talent. We know that. This didn't confirm or deny that. We know that, and he's going to kick on and have a bigger fight sometime soon. It's just a matter of when rather than if. So hopefully we see that soon. From you, in terms of performances or fights, what are you picking out from this as a moment to? What are the stories from this card that was otherwise maybe slightly disappointing?
There's only one man that you can talk about from this fight, and it's Giorgio Visioli. I think we've been peddling the hype train for Visioli since we've seen him in his debut, I think, but he just seems to keep growing and growing. And I've seen an interesting interview that Eddie Hearn done, I'm not sure who with, but he spoke with Visioli, and just everyone you listen to speak about him just has nothing but the most positive words to say about him. And apparently he's getting the better of a lot of very top prospects across the world. So I'm not sure if it's too early to say it, but we could be looking at possibly the best fighter to come out of Britain within the next few years, the way the people are going about Visioli.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He is the dogs. Kane Baker is a tough fighter and a quality operator at domestic level. And Giorgio Visioli in his, what was that, 6th or 7th fight? I think it was 7th maybe. Absolutely dispatched him, albeit maybe slightly quick early stoppage on that one. Probably more of an early stoppage than the Whittaker one was. But no one's really complaining because Visioli is impressive. He just kind of, I don't know, Kane Baker couldn't really lay a glove on him. He kind of was doing what he wanted to, how he wanted to. And more than anything, I think the sparring stuff, I find the whole sparring, I beat him thing kind of distasteful. I'm not really a fan of it because it's all speculative and no one can really prove it. It's a spar for a reason. No one wins. But if he is sparring top professionals, even if it's as even as it comes, or even if he's narrowly losing those ones against the best prospects in the world, the confidence you build from that and the way you are able to react to shots from the best, then you translate that over to fighting someone like Kane Baker, who, let's be, let's call eggs. He's not the world level fighter, and he probably never will be. But he's a good operator at the level, and Visioli had to do what he had to do, and he did what he had to do. And like you say, the Giorgio Visioli hype train is long gone out of the station. He's jumped on, maybe it's, I don't know, King's Cross St Pancras is onto international waters rather than staying in the UK, to really extend this stupid train analogy we've been using for the last month or so. Yeah, he's impressive. He's got on the Eurostar for me, and he'll be straight on to bigger and better things soon. I'm excited. Elsewhere on the card, I mentioned it, Josh Warrington, probably not the best performance in the world. He got the win. Set up the Conlan fight. That's the fight, I really think, for both fighters, isn't it? That makes sense.
Yes, that is the perfect fight for Josh Warrington next. I think him and Michael Conlan is just set up. I think that they must have had some sort of planning of that's what they wanted to do going forward. And yeah, I think you're correct. It's very much set up perfectly for him now. I think that's a nice way to end it for Warrington. I would expect him to beat Conlan, to be honest with you, even though he didn't look amazing, like you said, on Saturday night. He still got the job done, and I think that fight against Conlan would be a very nice way to tie the career up nicely and go out on a high, I would expect.
Yeah, it's two once chinny, exciting fighters that have lost that chin a little bit and maybe have lost the just edge of pace a little bit as well. But actually, when you match them together, they'll be about the same pace and have about the same chin, and it'll really be a matter of who wants it more. And that's quite exciting, and I think it's a good domestic clash. I'll watch it, people will watch it. What's not to like? Hopefully, obviously, Dalton Smith moves on to bigger and better things at world level soon with that WBC silver. But to be honest, we talked about this probably last time he won that belt, about all the possible fights he could and should have soon. So we'll see all of that good stuff coming up soon. And talking about big, talking about good, the Ring Magazine doing what the Ring Magazine do, announcing big cards. July 12th in New York City, Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Sheeraz as what looks like the main event for that one. Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda for the WBC title. Alberto Puella versus Subriel Matias, which I can only imagine is for the IBF. And then David Morrell versus Imam Katayev. Oof, I mean, pick a fight there that you're excited about, really.
Yeah, it's another brilliant card, but I'll be honest, I had the notification pop up and I was shocked to see Hamza Sheeraz going into that fight already. I felt like he might have taken an easier one coming off that last fight, but to be fair to him, he's thrown himself right back in it again against another high-level, world-class opponent, so it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. And obviously, it'll be his first fight with Andy Lee as well, so seeing how that sort of relationship unfolds will be one to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we've seen it now with Whittaker, the Andy Lee effect. We've seen it with Joseph Parker, the Andy Lee effect. I think we're going to see it with Hamza Sheeraz, and the difference, I think, is compared to Whittaker, for example, Sheeraz has shown it. Sheeraz has shown he's a world-level fighter. He fell short, a flat performance in his last one against Carlos Adames. Not the fight he should have been having. Injury to the hand, you'd sort of got to say, if you want to be winning world champ titles, that's not something that can necessarily be make or break. But, he'll learn from it. He'll come back. And Edgar Berlanga, albeit is beatable, he is also very much capable of causing some serious issues to anyone. And that's exciting. And then Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. The criticism of Shakur Stevenson is, this. He goes round and round the ring, round and round the ring. But who is one man who will be willing to, will have nothing in his mind other than chasing that man round and round the ring, cutting off that ring, making that ring feel as small as possible. and trying to put the work when you're in range, it's going to be William Zepeda. Is it the perfect fight for Zepeda? Far from it. Is it a really difficult fight for Zepeda? Absolutely. I'm under no illusion that I think he's going to beat Shakur Stevenson, but my heart is under the illusion that I hope he does, because I do really like William Zepeda, and I think that's a good fight for him.
Yeah, I think Shakur Stevenson in that weight class is as hard a test that anyone will have. Like you said, he's probably not the most entertaining of styles, but at the end of the day, boxing is about winning, and that's what he does best. He's a very defensive first fighter, but he knows how to get out of there with a victory. But if there's anyone that you would think could beat him, it would be Zepeda, because the style, I think, really much plays into his wheelhouse, where he'll be happy, like you said, to chase him for those 12 rounds and try and put as much of a dent in him as he possibly can. He's got such an engine, Zepeda, that he will keep going for the whole 12 rounds. It's just whether he can pin Shakur Stevenson down and do enough damage to, I would have thought, maybe pick up a decision, or if he can land that punch, get the stoppage win. It's probably still got Shakur Stevenson as favourite going into it, as you would expect with most of his fights, but it'd be a very interesting clash of styles, I think, and it'd be, to see how Zepeda gets off against him. And also, with the issues Shakur Stevenson seems to have with his hands, he hasn't got a lot of power to throw back against Zepeda, so he's not going to be able to hit hard enough, I think, to keep that pressure from coming towards him. So that's something he's going to have to deal with as well over those 12 rounds.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Shakur is able to deal with that kind of threat. And like you say, if there's any criticism of Zepeda, is that he takes too many shots. And he does take too many shots. But actually, like you say, I don't think Shakur will be able to make the dent in him for that to be a difference. It's just whether or not Shakur Stevens is able to do what he normally does and is likely to be able to do, which is use his feet so well, and the speed of those punches to be able to land more, win the rounds, do so without causing himself any major issues, and then, win the 12 rounds. But equally, if there's any man I wouldn't want in front of me for 36 minutes, it's William Zepeda, because, you're not going to get a rest. Absolutely not. Never. And so exciting, interesting. And while we're on the topic of William Zepeda, we forgot, I suppose, to give credit to Harry's future world champion in Josh Padley, who obviously picked up a good win against an undefeated fighter on his Matchroom debut, first day on the new job. He's put down the, I don't even know what they use, electrical cables, I suppose. Soldering iron, maybe, I don't know, I'm not an electrician, but he's put down those tools and picked up the Matchroom mantle, and I think he looked pretty good without getting carried away like possibly one of our colleagues.
Yeah, it's as perfect a start, I think, under Matchroom as he could have wished for, again, the 5th round stoppage. And I seen Shakur Stevenson himself was giving him some praise on Twitter, saying that he could tell that he'd learned some new skills from the fight that they'd had together. So it's great. You always love to see stories like that in boxing where someone has made it. We've seen it with Liam Cameron after all he's been through, and he's set himself up nicely. And it's the same with Padley here. So hopefully they can get him some more big shots in the future now. Hopefully he makes plenty of money. And I think that's the main thing, is to see him get out of the sport with plenty of money in the bank account, healthy and happy, and in a lot better position than where he would be if he hadn't taken that Shakur Stevenson fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for this one, before, obviously, next week, a huge fight. If you haven't already subscribed or followed on Spotify, depending how you're listening to this, it's Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn on Saturday. Hopefully content to come on the channel from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, fingers crossed for both of us, but also just another podcast to come later in the week. This is one of the most exciting, well-promoted, and me and Ben, after yesterday, know a thing or two about promotion now. And it's a great thing. We're going to be seeing a big fight, a great fight, and stick around on the channel, follow, subscribe for that. As always, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all later in the week.
But Punch's Chance. Punch's Chance podcast.